Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm so pleased to be joined by Zach Braff, a two-time Emmy Award nominee who directed the 8th episode of the Apple TV Plus comedy series Shrinking. Zach, I love this show. Obviously, you have a very long relationship with Bill Lawrence. So, how does that work in this case? Does he say, "Oh, would you like to direct an episode here?" Or how did you kind of get involved, I guess?
Well, we're best friends, and we obviously, I think it goes without saying, have the same sense of humor. And I learned so much directing Scrubs, really from a lot of my fellow DGA members, some of the great single cam comedy directors of our time. They all, a giant chunk of them, worked on Scrubs, and I saw it like grad school. I learned from these men and women so much how to execute single camera comedy, but not only well, but in the insanely short amount of time. In Scrubs days, we had 5 days to shoot an episode, so it was about how to be innovative with the camera and how to tell a story and get great performances. But man, you really had to go fast, and that was just kind of like grad school for me. I learned so much from them, and then I took that knowledge and directed, I think, 7 or 8 episodes of Scrubs ultimately, and then went on to make films, and then Bill and I, reteamed again for Ted Lasso when I directed the second episode of Ted Lasso, Biscuits, and it was just so wonderful to get back together and find that we just had that groove again. I know what he likes. I know, first of all, I learned so much underneath him, so I know exactly what he's looking for. I know that he's going to want that line exchange in a 2-shot because he thinks it'll play funnier in a 2-shot. I know that when he feels like, you know what, we should push in here, but if we do it on this line, it's a little too much. It's a little too heavy-handed. So I really think that we just have a shorthand, and we have so many years of things we can reference. And then I think when I got nominated for that Ted Lasso episode, and it was such a beloved episode, he just wanted to keep it going. So he invited me to join the party over at Shrinking. And he always gives me really interesting episodes. I think I didn't know that 8 would be such a special episode for people, to be honest, because I understood that Biscuits was, because it was the second episode. It was kind of the first one in Lasso that introduced the heart of the show. But with Boop, it was number 8, and I really loved the script. I thought it was so fun and different. It does stand out amongst the episodes because it breaks out of the normal world of Shrinking. The guys go on a quest to find Alice and the women and Luke, Sean, go on to the art gallery. So it was a and of course the concept of Boop is introduced into the show, which plays very importantly, without spoilers for the end of the series. So it was I don't know, it was just thrilling, and Bill and I just really have a wonderful shorthand, and I can't wait to direct more when we're allowed to for season 2.
Yeah, I love everything you said is dead on, and I love this episode too. And I think the other thing I really liked about it is all the characters it's just great. Every one of the characters feels like they have a great moment, right? And all the actors get to do a bunch of stuff, and they're all super funny. And then there's also obviously great emotional connection, I think, with certainly with Jimmy and Paul and all these different things. I guess so when you're coming in for the 8th episode and the cast has already been doing this, right, I'd imagine. So how do you approach working with the actors? And obviously you're an actor yourself, so I'm sure how to kind of do that anyway. And like you said, you've done a ton of features as well. You're a very acclaimed director, but I guess coming in when they've already kind of established maybe a rapport or whatever, how do you kind of approach the actors and their performances?
It's always tricky. It's the weirdest thing, and I remember this from when I was an actor, is that a director coming in is like, "Hey, nice to meet you guys. So I'm going to be the boss for the week." It's just such a weird dynamic that only happens in serial television. And I think particularly for Harrison, it was totally new because he had never worked like this in serial television. So he always has his director, and you establish a relationship. So I think for him it was. Of course, for me, that was the most daunting, getting to direct this living legend. But I think for him, too, he was getting used to this idea that every week there's a new face. So I had to quickly gain his trust. And I think, all the other actors I think we're used to, we're used to the concept of that. They'd lived through that. So, and they were very warm to me and very welcoming. And I think they knew that I had this special bond with Bill, and that I would, I wouldn't let Bill and the company down. I know what he wants. And then I just had to get over my intimidation of Harrison. But I've had that before. I've directed Morgan Freeman and Michael Caine and lots of legends. So I just put on my come on, you can, my pep talk in the mirror. Come on, you can do this. Because no matter what my experience with some of these great legends is, no matter who you are as an actor, you want to be directed. You want a leader. You want someone who has a vision for what's going to happen. You don't want someone bumbling. And so I just did that, and then Harris and I got along instantly, really, really well. And so that was that. And it was just such a fun place. I mean, Bill creates such fun sets where there's room to play. He gives his directors a chance to put their own stamp on it. Obviously, you stay within the lexicon of the show, but he gave me lots of room to put my own stamp on it.
Was there something like specifically that you could think of that like was your own stamp, you would say, or like that you were like, oh, this is great that I'm able to do this?
Well, one thing that's unique that I really love is that we have years and years of me pitching jokes alongside him. So a lot of times the director will come in and you're just executing the show. But with Bill and Neil Goldman, who's the showrunner, who is a big Scrubs writer, they're very open to me adding jokes and pitching jokes. And I was there the week in prep, and I just hung out a lot in the writer's room. So that's sort of a fun, unique thing for me, is I know how to write for Krista Miller, for example, or I know I have a great joke idea for this or that, and they're very receptive to that. So I think probably more than other directors who aren't also comedy writers, they let me go, ooh, what about this as an alt? What about that as an alt? And so that was super fun. The laser pointer, for example, is something that Neil Goldman and I riffed on together and came up with. And Neil was like, Bill's never going to go for this. Why the hell does she have a laser pointer on her keychain? And I'm like, all right, well, let's back into it. We have to convince Bill that it's hilarious. And he's like, I go, rocks. She loves rocks. She uses the laser pointer to point out rocks to her husband. And Neil goes, Bill might go for that. Let's try it.
That's awesome. I love the Liz and Gabby, Krista Miller and Jessica Williams relationship. I think is so funny, and that in this episode is really great. And that whole and adding Luke into that and Sean is great as well. I love that, because that's like another, like you're saying, like a lot of the stuff that happens in this episode is so important to like 9 and 10. And like that vibe that we're kind of like get in that episode, in this episode, really kind of carries through the rest of the season. I would imagine into season 2, whenever we're fortunate enough to get to see that as viewers, and certainly to work on it. But I guess like, was that fun? Like doing those scenes in the art gallery and stuff, and like they're just so good together.
That was another fun assignment. Is there's not a ton of swing sets. For those that don't know the term, new sets that aren't regular to the show in season 1 of Shrinking. It really isn't a ton, but we had to build this whole huge art gallery, and that was a really fun assignment to create that with Cabot McMullen, who's just, I mean, these sets, I have to say, give a shout out to Cabot, because every location in the show is a set. I mean, all of their houses, all of that, the backyard, it's all, sometimes they have to go to a real location, obviously, for some of the house stuff, but these sets are just the prettiest home sets I've ever been on. And so they're a pleasure to shoot, and obviously the office is all a beautiful set. But the art gallery we obviously had to create, and Cabot just did a wonderful job. He found a incredible artist to create who those are all his paintings, and we blew them up and huge. And we had to do some specifics, obviously, with Jessica's tattoo birthmark. But that space was just really fun, and we had to bang out a lot of scenes in there in a short amount of time, and it was just really fun. We added those neon strips to the columns, which had a really, really nice look to it. But yeah, as you were saying, a lot of things culminate in this episode. I mean, not only do you get the introduction of the concept of Boop, but you get the beginnings of the friendship with Jessica and Krista. You get the concept that Sean is going to get into catering. You get Jimmy finally standing up to Alice and disciplining her, which has been a long time coming. And that beautiful moment at the end, when he looks to the heavens to sort of almost pray to his wife for strength, which is just so moving. And Jason does such a fabulous job there. And there's so much humor. I mean, the stuff with the peacock and the car ride, and oh my gosh, the gazebo. I mean, we just did. That was a tough shoot because we shot all night at Descanso Gardens, and we just had so much fun. The peacock, peacocks aren't up at night.
No.
So they had written this thing that not only is the peacock that they stumble across a peacock, but that it does its thing with the feathers, which isn't a thing a peacock does on cue, nor can you train it to do. And also peacocks are not up at night. So we had to deal with all of that, Michigas. But it was so fun. And the funniest scene to me of all, one of the funniest scenes of the whole season is them apologizing to Alice for sleeping together. I mean, I watched that scene and I laughed so hard at it.
It's so funny. I was rewatching obviously before we're doing this, and that just is the fun. Their chemistry is great anyway. So like, I mean, Jason and Jessica are so funny, but that is just the cascading of it and the timing of it is just so great. I mean, is that like you said, you're probably just sitting there laughing as well, watching them do it. But I mean, did they how much time, like, did they rehearse that, or like, how did you kind of like go into that sequence?
That was the very first scene I directed. So that was like first day nerves. Cause like you said about what's it like to come in and direct a cast that's already a well-oiled machine. That was my very first scene. So I was a bit nervous. I knew Jason just a little bit as an acquaintance. I didn't know Jessica. I didn't know Lukita. But I had a solid plan for the blocking. I had a couple extra jokes in my head that I was going to pitch, and we were just belly laughing. It was the best thing to start on because I remember just swiping tears from laughing. When he says there was some standing, I was just crying from laughter. And I don't know, it was just the greatest way to start off the 6-day shoot with that scene.
It's so great. You meant,
and then I got to meet Harrison, and Harrison pulls up in a golf cart, and he goes, "Come on, let's go. I want to go talk to you on my apartments, on my house set, and just kind of talk through the first scene." And I'm like, "Okay, great." And I'm so nervous because we're like, I'm getting in a golf cart and going with him alone to this giant empty soundstage, and I'm like, "All right, this is the greatest life experience ever," but I'm nervous, and he's driving on the golf cart through the Warner Brothers lot, and these trams, they have the tourist trams on the Warner Brothers lot that are driving by, and I'm trying to think of some small talk because I'm so nervous, and I noticed that he just adjusts his head a little bit, and I, as it goes by, and I say, "The trams, do you ever wave?" And he goes, "No, I always look away." And there's like a long pause, and he goes, "But I do feel bad about it."
It's amazing.
So that was my introduction to Harrison, and then we became. I love planes and I love flying, and I have my pilot's license, and we became fast friends talking about aviation.
Oh, that's awesome! What a great, and you do a great Harrison Ford impression. I have to say, you got him down. I think the gruffness. I feel like
very rough.
I wanted, as you mentioned, like the last scene with Jimmy and Alice, and that is just a great moment too. And I love when she's like, "I fucking hate you," and then he's like, "I fucking love you." And the line reading is so perfect for Jason. I just think that whole sequence is like really wonderful, and like you said, like really kind of nails the emotion of it. I get like, yeah, can you like a little more? Like, I just thought that sequence is great, and like you said, Jason is so good in that scene as well. Like, I think his acting is so great. Yeah.
Well, and it has the buildup of Paul giving him a much needed pep talk in the kitchen, and that I thought was very moving. I thought Harrison was wonderful there, and it was very a moving moment. Him really showing up as a parental figure for Jimmy, and then when Jimmy comes back from dropping Paul off, he doesn't know what he's about to let her slide. She's just lounging on the couch. Bill, who has teenagers, I remember him giving a very specific direction to Lukita, like, You're lying back on the couch, you're on your phone, you don't think anything's going to happen, you're being cocky. And and um and I just thought Jason was wonderful there. He took what Paul said to heart, and he had to summon the courage to be like, no, no more. I'm putting my foot down. And I thought Lukita was great there, and I don't know. We did a couple of different versions of Jason's last moment, but Jason looking up to the heavens was just so moving to me, and that's the one I put in.
Yeah, I love too, like we're talking about, I mean, the show in general, it's got all this great emotional stuff and super funny. And even within that scene, like him like not knowing Japanese breakfast is a band, I just think it's like so fucking funny.
That's the magic of Bill. I mean, that's the magic of Bill's work. If you look at Lasso and Shrinking and Cougar Town and Scrubs, obviously, they're he can have you cracking up and then have a tear in your eye in a quarter of a page. That's something Bill is just so fantastic at. And on Scrubs, obviously, was the most extreme, because we would go from something so broad, a fantasy that was just insane, to dealing with a patient who's about to lose their life. But here, in a more realistic world, he can do that with Jason saying something, a joke about the band Japanese Breakfast, right into breaking your heart. And it's a testament to the actors and the writing, and it's just it's so fun to direct, because if you got the talent, and you've got the set, and you've got the beautiful lighting, and you've got the writing, it's all there. It's just it's the director's job to just get it and not fuck it up.
You mentioned we have to wrap up, but you mentioned earlier when we started about how, like, when you were on Scrubs, like the kind of like graduate school for being a single camera comedy director and stuff. I guess now you're obviously great at this. I think I'll say that you don't have to say it, but I think you're really good at it. Like, how do you feel like how have you what have you learned, and what are you still learning? I guess even now, like when you're doing like this when you're doing Boop here like that.
Absolutely. I'm still learning. I mean, I learned so much, like I said, from the directors who directed Scrubs, but I'm always learning. I'm always learning how to use restraint sometimes, to just let it sit. Not, the moment doesn't need a cool camera move. That's hard for me. I love moving the camera. I love cameras. I love camera toys. For me, sometimes it's like, this moment is so perfect. Don't move the camera. Just let it sit. Finding moments to to be restrained, and it's always challenging to really find the exact tone of the show. Do your own thing, but operate within the world of the show. With Scrubs, the camera could do insane things, because the camera was one of the leads of the show on Scrubs. With a show like Lasso or Shrinking, the camera's more restrained, so when you do move, it says so much more. When you do a unique angle that's a little outside of the box of the show, it says so much more. That's where I continue to learn how to tell the story within the world of the show, but also put my unique take on it.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Big fan. And Zach Braff here, a 2-time Emmy Award nominee, directed the 8th episode of Shrinking. You can watch all the episodes on Apple TV Plus. Zach, thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris, so much.